Welcome back to the Culinary Mechanic Podcast. That's a fucking mouthful, isn't it? Jesus. Anyway, we're on the Culinary Mechanic Podcast. And I got to tell you, every time I do these intros, I put a little music in the background and I just love the way it feels. So maybe there's going to be more music in the future. I don't know. But here we are. This is going to be part 2 of a conversation with Anthony Bucco of Landmark Hospitality. And I gotta tell you, I absolutely love talking to this guy. He is what I want chefs to grow up to be. He's organized, he's focused, he's intellectual, he's real, and genuinely good dude. So, without further ado, we're gonna get back to it. I hope you enjoy this. I think that this is the best way to be able to appreciate what he's got to say, because after about 35 minutes, nobody seems to listen, man. So this broke it up into like 2 24-minute sections, because I just want to get the word, and I want to continue to have podcasts that people listen to. So thank you so much for listening. Here we go with part 2 of Anthony Bucco.
There was a time, like I say, that like you think about the intangibles. And like I say, I went back to athletes. It's like athletics. You look at like star athletes, they're very similar to star chefs in many ways. You have to have endless amounts of intangibles that like just kind of reflect. It's not only about the food. There's so many different other elements that make somebody special and stand out from their peers. And it's pretty amazing that today, like food culture and food press and food media is really dominates a lot of our free time. There are very few networks today that don't have a prominent food show.
Yeah.
And I think that there's something really special about that. And I think the things that you and I realized when we were growing up in this business is like, yeah, man, we are lucky. We are blessed to be in here. And there's a lot of cool stuff happening. And you know what? As a chef, you are a superhero. I think that's been confirmed by popular culture and the media in the last
Totally.
20 years.
Totally.
You are a Superman. The things that you can do, the mental and the physical and the emotional kind of challenges and how you process that and put out a really awesome experience for people. Man, that's up there.
Yeah.
And yeah, you can make the argument we're not saving people, we're not doing this, we're not doing that, but in many ways we kind of are. And I think you can look down the line and you can see people who, and I'm not saying it's on us or we save them, but when you look at this industry as in general, it has saved a lot of people.
Yes.
It has taken people and put them on the path to something purposeful in their life. And honestly, there's a lot of virtue and a lot of benefit to what hospitality has done for not only the people who get to experience it on the other side of the table, but more importantly, the people who work in this industry. And you know what? That is a superhero responsibility. And maybe it's not designated to one individual, but it's definitely designated to our industry. And there's a lot to be proud of.
Absolutely.
A lot.
I think for me, like there's this moment where you say, okay, I have these powers, and then there's some that are using them for their own gain, and then there's some that are, I got a buddy in LA, and he's feeding 8,000 homeless folks a day, right? While he's also working to get his education program accredited, right? Like, so he's teaching people, and it's from the sense of I can do anything, that he learned in a kitchen. We spoke recently, and he's like, you helped me to learn this, and that's been instrumental. And that all by itself is amazing. But like, it's the realization that the foundations that we have as culinarians, as cooks, as chefs, like it doesn't stop, you know. So I think for me, this is a great place to like kind of stop and turn a little bit. How does all of that turn a corner and find you as the senior VP of a pretty cool hospitality company that's doing great things?
Yeah,
How did that happen?
we're cranking. This company is now, 25 years strong.
Right.
And the business model is it's not unique, but it's definitely diversified. And when I say diversified, we have a large percentage of our revenues and a lot of our business volume comes via special events and our catering operations. And then you marry that with some really cool, substantial a la carte restaurants and some cool boutique hotels. And that really has been what has come to define Landmark Hospitality. I had an opportunity to work with the principals, Frank and Jeannie Crotella, on a project where we brought back to life an iconic restaurant in New Jersey called the Ryland Inn in 2012. And from there was able to kind of partner with them on a second business in Bergen County, New Jersey, here where we're at on an Italian concept, which is now I think 3 strong and will grow to 5 strong by the end of next year.
Awesome.
The relationship, the trust, the realities of just anticipating where I can kind of contribute and help grow the business model or models, and how like a lot of my experiences with working in multiple properties that they've owned through the years could be a massive benefit to kind of the overarching team. As a company, we employ over 800 people.
Wow.
The lion's share of that payroll always falls on the back of the house because there's just kind of the nature of the beast. I have a really great team, and I have the team is varied. You have people who are new in the industry to people who have been around and kind of understand kind of the ups and downs and the challenges, but have persevered and have had a large amount of success.
Right.
So for me, it's the most interesting challenge that I have, again, and I think you had mentioned it earlier, is the people aspect and kind of understanding, relating, and connecting. And there's a difference between being on site 6-7 shifts a week and or days rather, and kind of working with a team and kind of driving culture and quality and consistency. And then the flip side of that is there's the other aspect where it's like I don't get to spend a lot of time with everybody, but my goal and responsibility is to spend enough that I can get messages and kind of take the company goals and platforms and make sure that those resonate across multiple properties. I enjoy the opportunity to cook with 12 different chefs. I enjoy the opportunity to kind of contribute to what's going on in 12 different kitchens, and we'll grow to 15 by the end of 2024. And I'm also realistic and understand that, little stop-ins here and there don't necessarily define a relationship or set the tone in some cases. So it's about being, diligent on the other end as well and supporting where I can support. I think every chef has their strengths and their weaknesses. And I'd like to believe that, the biggest component of my responsibility is to make sure that where there are challenges or compromises in their abilities is really where I can contribute, and not make it about, taking something that, and making it a negative example, but actually making it more seamless and absorbing some of those areas that, truthfully, people need support in. One of the areas that I really like to focus on for the company is making sure that, when it comes to managing the finances, to me, a chef's best use case, if you will, is on the creative side. It's helping kind of reinforce and create brands, and then making sure that the public or, the dining audience understands their contribution to both of those areas. And
Right.
they really do stand in front of it. For me, it's making sure that they have access to great product at great pricing. So I try to kind of minimize some of the impact of their time behind the desk of placing orders and, grabbing the clipboard and going into the walk-in. Ultimately they are responsible for that, but ultimately I can kind of help with making sure that if we're using, whatever it is, we're using Berkshire pork, that we're getting the best pricing. And then that's something that's really important. Secondary, it's making sure that we have some institutional kind of SOPs, if you will, that extend above and beyond that. It's not like these are rules but they're really more driven to be procedures that actually help support efficiencies and obviously the training and the growth curve of all players involved. I like to see people developed. It's almost non-negotiable. It's like if you're a chef, I mean, you're a teacher, you're an educator, and you're responsible and accountable for doing that. It's the next generation of talent just doesn't show up. It's not trial and error. It's grooming. It's developing, and it's paying attention. So I mean, there's a lot to that. But I'm also aware that at every level you still crave knowledge, you still crave education. So I try to make sure that the programming that we put in place for our chefs and the meetings that we have are effective and not just, lip service and drilling things into people's minds because they're, it's the duty of the compliance of whatever. It's more on the other side. It's like, how do we take people and show them things and keep them engaged and excited about what's going on? And we're on farms, and we're visiting slaughterhouses, and we're going down to fisheries, and we're working with oyster farmers on oyster farms, and getting an understanding of the full circle of where our ingredients come from. And then to your earlier point, and you had made mention of your friend in LA, there's also that side of it where it's like we're working together as a group to figure out how we can help people. And I'm not talking about how to help people get their check average high and, and fill seats on an off night by doing an event. I'm talking about, where are we engaging with the community? How are we helping the communities that we're servicing? And, at the end of the day, not every chef has a ton of bandwidth left after their commitments to their jobs, and most of them have, young families.
You know,
So it's being responsible and trying to find a balance where I kind of serve a lot of my personal life experiences and not to make it about that, but where I've seen my life suffer or benefit, I just try to not necessarily force that on anybody, but just give them the insights to like, hey, maybe this is an option for you at this point in your day or your hour or your career.
yeah,
And that to me is the best function of my job, as I get to kind of work. I'm kind of I guess the best way for me to say it is, I'm a player coach, right? Meaning,
yep,
I wear the headset on the sideline and I call in the plays, but I can still go up and take an at bat or run a play on the field myself, and I like that aspect. It's there's definitely a need in this business to keep your hands in the product, if you will.
absolutely,
And I
absolutely.
feel like it's what keeps you sharp. I have a couple dinners coming up this week, and I will say that, for me to put together a dinner, and listen, they're small, it's like little specialty dinners I'm doing. I think one's 30 and one's 45 people. There was a time in my life that I could do that probably between the hours of 3 a.m. and 4 o'clock in my dreams and be set up like the prep and production and like literally walk in and blow it out. Today there's a little bit more to it because I have other projects that are started and a lot of stuff that I do is more corporate based, but regardless, it's a layup. The reality is like those 2 days in the kitchen simultaneously. And I say that because it's like, it's kind of where I am, it's like, I wish I had, the ability to go in and drop myself into the room for a month and a half. My life right now has taken me to a point where if I can spend 30% of my time, my professional time a week in a kitchen, then I'm actually succeeding.
Right.
And when I say that, that means that all my other stuff is getting done, which, barring anything new popping up, that's positive. But 2 days in the kitchen, what it'll do for my clarity and everything else is going to be amazing because it'll give me the ability to accomplish other things. I feel like a chef without a kitchen is, yeah, it's just doesn't work, So
Yeah,
there's an important component to that that's necessary.
yeah. I mean, I spent 35 years in the kitchen, and now I'm podcasting and consulting and advising, and my home cooking has taken a whole new level. So I
Yeah,
completely feel you. My wife is like, "This is
yeah,
amazing."
yeah.
You know,
No, that's just
um,
it. Like I say, got to have
it's
your
got to go
hands in it.
somewhere.
Yeah, 100%. And if it doesn't, honestly, I think it does take its toll on you as, and I say this, like it sounds goofy to say this, but if I'm not physically cooking, it takes away from my ability to be creative. It takes away from my ability to be disciplined. Like everything that was programmed when you're learning through this process to when you arrive, all of those little kind of components of who you are as a professional start to go away when you're not doing that.
Yeah,
I just don't get the same rise out of like going through spreadsheets and, looking at pro formas and, coming up with budgets for new properties. It's like it gets me, there's a different level of interest I have in that, but it doesn't drive me like cooking does,
you mean
and
spreadsheets
that's
don't smell the same as morel mushrooms? Come on.
God, yeah, I know, right? It's like, I mean, Jesus, I wish we had to forage for those too. The problem is spreadsheets are too easy to find. uh,
It's interesting. You've brought up something that really is central to my existence nowadays, and it's that you're saying cooking helps keep you balanced to do the other things. And I have found that there are a ton of chefs that they don't have the structure behind them to be able to keep their admin work and their people work and all,
Mhm.
and also like running the business so that they like all of that becomes almost chaos for them, right? They're running these restaurants and we've all seen them, right? They're
Mhm.
running and they serve great food. But I tell the guys, I'm like, if you don't have the structure behind it, then at some point you're not going to get to do the cool stuff, right?
Correct.
So you've got to have, like, there's got to be, and balance isn't the right word for me. I think it's probably harmony, right?
Yeah.
It's got to roll in harmony because I love the fact that you are clearly structured, right? You were structured to have notes as a rookie cook, right? That was a great, in my mind, great demonstration of a way to keep things from going off the rails, right? So clearly you've got the structure, but it's amazing to me how many chefs don't they aren't taught those things. They like they just come up because they can cook. But
Mhm.
like what I tell people is if your joy is your business and your joy is the food, but you don't attend to that other stuff, you're not going to get the privilege of like feeding those people and you're not going to get the privilege of cooking because at some point like cooking for people is a privilege. I
Correct.
genuinely think so, whether it's my wife or whether it's 50 people out at, at the whatever event, or it's 500 going into the steakhouse on Saturday night, right?
Mhm.
That's a privilege. So I genuinely love the like the different angle that you pull from it, from really almost polar from where I see a lot. And I think that I hope that when someone listens to this podcast, they hear, hey, he's super structured. He's figured out the ways to do things. And now what's important to him is he gets to cook to be able to get back to do those other things well. And so I think
I
it's,
think you need it.
yeah.
You can't spend like you mentioned, 35 years of your life. I'm 30 years into this process. It has come to define us as people.
Mhm.
And you can't take the one thing that people associate with us away and expect us to be equally, up to the task. And that there's something to that. I'm a chef who, maybe it's because I'm not a great expediter, but I'm better suited on the line. I like cooking and I like cooking service. And, I still get to cook a service here and there. Not as many
Nice.
as I'd like. I used to work 6 services in my restaurant. My sous chef's expedite. I don't need to call tickets. Also the beauty of where I'm at in my career is like at 10 o'clock, I can walk off the line and, deal with something else where, I don't have all of the baggage that's associated with cooking at this point.
Right.
I do it on my terms, but I do like to do it. And it's important kind of to say that because it's like, without it, I don't know what I would do. And like I say, can I go, present at a board meeting all day? Can I go to a community college and give a speech, a lecture, work with, you name the programming that we have to work with. Yeah, all day. I can be involved in all of those different areas. But the one thing that keeps me grounded and keeps me coming back to work is the times I have behind the six burner.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's awesome. How about let's since we have a sports analogy running, let's call an audible and say, got any advice for the fresh culinarians out there, the fresh cooks and chefs that are coming up the ranks?
I do. I have a lot of advice. And each person's different and each person processes, information differently. The thing that I always like, I personally, like I say, it's funny. I go through like notes and stuff at home. I used to write everything down, and for me, that was the easiest way for me to retain information. And this is pre-cell phone, so I kind of get it now. It's like you can go and you can tap in your notes section of your phone. I think the biggest thing to do is to kind of reinforce the steps that, especially when you're starting out cooking. I used to draw pictures of like how my 6, 9, and third pans would be laid out in my refrigerator, and kind of figure out like, okay, if I'm reaching for this, what am I? Is there cross contamination opportunity? Is it, does it make sense to have this salad split in 4 different places in my refrigeration unit, or should things be consolidated? You know, I I think the biggest challenge for what we do is kind of getting things out in pristine condition in as fast a time as we can do it and as consistently as we can make things happen. The one thing that I would encourage anybody young to do is read a lot, or when I say young, young in the industry, read a ton, read a ton, read a ton, and pay attention to everything. And this is something that, I think was reinforced and told to me a lot when I was a young cook is like less about what you're saying and more about what you're hearing. And I think that's really what it comes down to is really listen. And when we speak of food, we speak of the use of all the senses, but when it comes to comprehension, it's equally important. Listening is a part of it. Watching really is a lot of it. And we grew up in the world of demo do, touching. Somebody does something, you follow up and you do the same action.
Yeah.
And at some point, you really get your hands around it. But I think the biggest thing is to kind of use less, talk less, pay attention more, and
Right.
and really kind of record the information that you're processing, whether you're typing it into your phone, like, all right, so first you sear before you put salt on it. Because if you salt before you sear, it's going to release liquid and lower the temperature of your pan. And everything is different, but making sure that you're really in real time recording the data that you're pulling in, it goes a long way. And this because we grew up at a time when people would tell you they forgot more than they'll ever know. And as I'm getting
Uh,
close to 50, I kind of finally realize what that means. And I kind of am like, wow, that's some truths. So write it down because you're gonna forget.
yeah. Yeah.
So
I mean, I think there's a very valid reason why there's recipe books, man.
correct.
I had a lead cook. Oh boy, let's see here. 1996, 7, and 8, we worked together, and he would scream at me, "Young man, I have forgotten more than you will ever know, and there's just no
Mhm.
way you're gonna." And I thought, yeah, right, man. But there's just some days where I'm like, okay, I get it. I feel you. I 100%
Yeah,
feel you.
without question, man. And that's the truth. And it makes you laugh, but it's like, how many times I've heard that? Was it if I had $1 for every time I heard that? But like the reality is there's so much truth to it. The world changes so quickly in our work in our kitchens. You think about the number of menu changes and the frequency of moving out daily specials and just everything. It's like one day you wake up and you're like, Jesus Christ, what did I do yesterday? And it's true. You forget a lot of what's come before you. And it's like, sometimes it's the muscle memory of taste that brings you back.
Yeah,
Um, but we forget a lot of stuff. And I
yeah,
think that there's also a reason for that.
yeah. Uh, Well, man, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you coming to play with us today.
It's been fun.
I love these conversations. I think that's a lot of why I do this podcast, to be perfectly honest
Yeah,
with you. It's so I'm over here in Seattle, you're in New Jersey, and we've lived some pretty parallel experiences, as far as the kitchen is concerned. So I think for me, it just makes my heart sing to know that there's guys out there that are doing different things. Because that's really it's such a special industry. It just really is. So
I
once again,
agree.
thank you so much for coming to play.
My pleasure.
Um, and I look forward to seeing what is coming because it sounds like you got some interesting things popping up in 2024 and beyond. So
Things don't stop, my friend, and vice versa. So, continued success and let's talk again.
yeah, I would love to. Um, getting to talk to chefs and getting to help chefs kind of really put their things together with Culinary Mechanic has been an absolute honor. It makes the 35 years of being in the kitchen almost even more special as I'm out here going, wow, things are easier than they were and they're harder than they were. So it's been special. So to all of you out there, thank you so much for joining us. We will play soon. Talk to you again. Thank you.